It's time for Recipe of the Day. When you want to have a wholesome homemade baked good on hand, but it's a Monday, you need to make this banana bread recipe because it is just so easy. This one uses only one bowl. It's going to be ready in about 50 minutes start to finish, which sounds long, but the hands-on time is only 10 minutes. So it's going to be a piece of cake. Well, a piece of banana bread, I guess. And I'm going to tell you this recipe is not mine, although I have made it before. It is on my site, The Cookful. This one is by Irvin Lynn from Eat the Love. If you know Irvin on social media, I will link to his Instagram. You know he makes beautiful and delicious things. And this is one that he made for us over at The Cookful. Really great banana bread. I have a couple things to say that Irvin agrees with me on in this post. A lot of people say that you should use your really overripe bananas for making banana bread. I think if they have too many dark spots on them, they are not great to use. I could taste it in the banana bread when the bananas are overripe. So try to use them when they're all yellow, not green anymore, with maybe a couple flecks of black. After that, no, they're not good for this. I wouldn't anyways. Now, if on the other hand, you have bananas that are not ripe enough for banana bread, they still have some green to them, you can do one of two things. Either you can put them in a paper bag, and that will help them keep the ethylene that they're releasing in with that bag with them, and that makes them ripen faster, but that's still going to be like a day or so, right? The other thing you can do is you can roast them right in their peels. Just put those bananas right in their peels onto a baking sheet and into a 300-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. The peel will turn black from the heat, and they will have softened up and kind of caramelize their flavor just a little bit. Let them cool so that you can handle them, peel them, and use them in the banana bread. Okay, so you've got your bananas. What do you do to make this quick and easy banana bread? Start by preheating your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and spray a loaf pan, a 9x5-inch one, with some cooking spray or some oil, and then you're going to line it with a piece of parchment paper. So we are making sure that this does not stick at all. It's going to come out easier. That tiny bit of time at the beginning saves you time later if you have frustration from not being able to get that banana bread out of the pan, right? Then you are putting your bananas into a large bowl. We're doing 2 to 3 medium-sized bananas. You want about 400 grams after peeling, which is about 1 pound. A pound is 454 grams. So we're pretty close to a pound after peeling. Mash those bananas up with a fork in that bowl. You should end up with 1 3/4 cups of mashed bananas. If you're starting with like already cut up bananas that you had in your freezer, that is how much you want once they're mashed, 1 3/4 cups. Then you are adding 1 large egg to that. Give it a little whisk and a teaspoon of vanilla extract, a half teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. You give that a nice stir just to make sure it's all mixed up. Then you're adding in a half cup of butter melted. It calls for unsalted butter. If you were using salted, you would just use a little bit less salt later in the recipe. So you're melting that butter in the microwave, a half a cup of it, and you're pouring that in, drizzle it in, and whisk it all up. Okay, next, I promised you that this recipe was all being made in one bowl. Often when we're baking, we do the wet ingredients in one bowl and then the dry ingredients in another, and then combine them. This time we are not doing that. It saves time and it doesn't make a difference. This bread ends up nice and fluffy and perfect, so don't worry about that. What you're going to do is add your brown sugar directly to that bowl of ingredients you've already added. It's 3/4 cup packed, and then you're going to sprinkle a teaspoon of baking powder over top and a teaspoon of baking soda and a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. The recipe calls for kosher salt. As we know from other things that I've talked about on this site, when we're talking about small amounts like this, a 1/4 teaspoon, the volumes of kosher salt and table salt are about the same. So if you have a finer grain salt, it's probably going to be the same amount, a 1/4 teaspoon. Just remember that if your butter was salted, then you don't want to use as much salt here, maybe half as much. Okay, give that a stir, and then you're going to add the flour. 2 cups of all-purpose flour. With your spatula, you're going to stir that all together until just absorbed. So you don't want to overmix as normal when we're making a quick bread like this. Then you're going to use that spatula to transfer the batter into your prepared loaf pan that's lined with parchment paper, and you're going to bake it in the oven for 50 to 60 minutes or until a toothpick or skewer inserted in the middle of the loaf comes out clean. Then you're going to just sit that on the counter for about 15 minutes, and then you can use the parchment paper that we put in there to lift it straight out and onto a cooling rack. Peel off the paper and then let it cool for another 15 minutes before you try slicing it. At that point, it will still be warm for serving if you wanted it warm, or you could cool it all the way to serve it. I like mine spread with butter. That is it. I love banana bread with butter. So good. Thank you, Irvin, for a great recipe. recipe. Go and find him, everyone. Eat the love. And I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is January 13th of 2025. The other place you can get the link is in our Facebook group. I post the recipe of the day there every single day, so you can always find what I am talking about, get a great idea for what you can make that day or later in the week. Head to facebook.com/groups/recipeotd. I look forward to seeing you there. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.